My name's Stuart. I'm from a company called Insync Technology, and we're a Microsoft partner that's focused on the education sector, and a very strong Microsoft partner across Office 365, Skype for Business, System Center, and all the other offerings, part of the cloud sort of bits and pieces. And you guys have all expressed some interest in what we call our modern automation platform. So it's an automation platform that we've developed with a few local schools in Brisbane, based on Microsoft Forefront Identity Manager, or now called Microsoft Identity Manager, or MIM. But we have kind of taken it to the next level with some of the stuff that we've been doing, and we've rebranded it the Modern Automation Platform. So who am I? Assuming everyone can see the screen. I'm a techo, so I'm not a salesperson. So I've also got Nick on the call, who's one of our developers and the primary consultant around identity management here. And so he can answer any of the really technical questions. But yeah, I generally get these duties because I don't mind talking. Another fun fact is that I have a vast collection of Star Wars Lego, so I don't have any other vices, it's just Lego. So that's a bit about me. Again, we're an education focused partner. We've sold and deployed about 155,000 seats of Office 365 across Brisbane, Sydney and Melbourne, and we've got permanent offices in Brisbane and Melbourne. So again, we're a gold Skype partner, a gold cloud partner, a gold Azure partner, and also a gold enterprise mobility management partner around mobile device management and EMS. But anyway, let's get into the fun stuff. Again, just a bit about what we do in a broad sense. So I'm just going to get into talking about the way that a school currently provisions users and Active Directory accounts and all the other fun stuff that we do on a day-to-day basis. So typically the first step is to provision the user's data or the student enrollment into a student management system, whether it's TAS, Synergetic, SAS, Schoolbox, whatever the case may be. And typically these are an on-premise deployment at the moment. It's typically a big monolithic database with some kind of front end. But an administrative staff would insert the student details in the enrollment, their timetable, their classes, their teachers, their parents' details, etc., etc., and it will all come into this monolithic student management system. And then once it's in the student management system, it's then handed over to IT to do the rest. So then we move into the IT team makes an Active Directory account. They create the permissions. They create the email address, or it could be the file shares, etc., etc. So that's a manual process. So we've gone from a manual process from the student management system, another manual process to create the Active Directory accounts, etc., etc. And then, if we're using Office 365, we then go off and another manual process to create that Office 365 identity, license it for a mailbox, license it for OneDrive, SharePoint, whatever the other workloads that you might use in Office 365. Again, there's some manual intervention there to check that it's happened and it's okay and it's all working. The next step might be, if you're not using Office 365 for email, you might have to go back and create a mailbox and then an archive mailbox and some kind of retention policies and all the other stuff with your on-premise Exchange server. The next step might be your personal folder, so a G drive or a H drive or whatever the case may be. Again, making sure the permissions are okay, and we're building up to a lot of manual processes at this point. Then we move into class lists, making sure that we might have distribution lists for certain classes and year levels and things like that, making sure they're coherent and have the correct membership. And then finally, we might even look at trying to build the class timetable into Outlook or Exchange or somehow. So again, we typically see these 7 manual processes being used quite heavily in schools, and again, there's a lot of time tied up in these processes and also human error. So this is quite a long process to get from go to woe, from an enrollment to getting the actual user onboarded and using technology and using productivity tools, it actually takes quite amount of effort to get that done. So what other common tasks do we see in schools that can be solved by what we're about to show you is, with password resets. So if you've got a help desk or a service desk that's constantly getting tickets about, I need to reset my password, I don't know what it is, and that could be staff, and that could be students as well. We've also got changes to classes. So if someone changes from, drops physics and goes into chemistry, for example, or whatever the case may be, there's obviously constant change within a school to around the class, class timetables. We've also got the human error element. So we have, there's human error inherent in this process. So, sometimes the permission won't be done right for a file share or an email box or a delegation or something like that. There's going to be some kind of human error factor in that as well. Another thing we've found in a couple of schools locally in Brisbane is the use of photos. So be able to enforce the use of photos for staff members, so that you're being able to identify people across campus via their photo has become more and more prevalent in some of the schools we've been dealing with. Another thing that also is a common task is provisioning relief teachers. So, someone comes in for a 3-4 week period, and you need to provision that user with all the previously mentioned productivity tools and Active Directory, etc. How do we do that quickly and with a minimum of fuss, and then basically offboard them at the end of that period, be able to revoke all those things in an automated fashion. One of the other things we've been working on is the Skype for Business. So if you're running Skype for Business or Link for your school communication system, being able to onboard people into Skype and Link very quickly, find an available number, an extension, assign it, and then get them off and using that technology. So these are some of the more common tasks that we see in schools. So I've explained the problem, and this probably puts it into a tangible metric sense. So we've got a couple of schools which are, a year 7 to year 12 school with about 700 to 800 students and approximately 150 staff. We've been managing their user identity and access for around 12 months, and on average they were spending about 2.3 to 2.5 hours per year per student or staff member. So that adds up to about 1,800 hours per year of a staff member having to manage identity, manage accounts, etc. So yeah, if you do the maths for your school, times it by your FTE count plus your student count, there's a lot of time tied up in doing account management, identity management and provisioning, just with the normal flow and ebb of a school. So yeah, what could you guys do with an extra 1,800 hours every year? I mean, I know I could do quite a bit. Obviously, I don't have quite the same challenges as a school, but yeah, it's about using a solution to get back that 1,800 hours every year and do something more productive with it. So where does MAP come in, or the Modern Automation Platform? So it's an identity and task automation platform. It's built on Microsoft Identity Manager 2016. So if you're familiar with Forefront Identity Manager, or FIM, previous to that it was called ILM, which was Identity Lifecycle Manager. It's had a few names, but it's finally sort of settled on Microsoft Identity Manager until they decide to change it again. And it automates repetitive, identity and common tasks within a school. And the idea being is that it's workflow and a synchronized engine based software, so it keeps things synchronized between different systems. So it might be between your school management system and Active Directory, or it might be between Active Directory and Office 365. But the idea being is that MAP sits in the core of your network, and it can keep a bunch of disparate systems up to date with attributes and all sorts of things. So we'll get into to what it looks like as well just shortly. So what does the future look like with MAP? So go back to our cogs again. So the user data is entered into the student management system. We can't get away from this this step, the users have to put in the student management system to kick off the process. The next step is the user is automatically created in Active Directory. So the user, the synchronized engine inside MAP will query the student management system, and it'll pull all of that data into the platform, and the user is created in Active Directory automatically based on criteria in the student management system. And the next step is it'll go off and create an Exchange mailbox in Office 365, for example. It'll go off and create a destination for email. It'll apply the retention policies. It will apply any sort of quoting or archiving to that as well automatically. It'll apply the correct licensing to Office 365. So if it's a student, you can define here, I give my students these licenses in Office 365. It'll do that automatically. The student gets automatically added to security groups that are relevant for that student. That might be based on class criteria or something else that we can add them automatically. We can add them to a distribution group, again based on criteria that we can set. And then the next thing is the class timetable. So we can actually pull the class timetable into the modern automation platform and then push that into Exchange or Office 365. So when the user comes in, signs into their email account, their class timetable automatically populates in their calendar, in their Outlook calendar or their iPhone or whatever the case may be. And this goes for staff or student, and it'll provision that automatically. And that also means if they change classes, then that automatically the workflow will run, synchronize the changes in their class timetable, and also push that back into Exchange. So it'll say they dropped physics and go into chemistry. It will remove physics from their timetable and put chemistry in where that was. So if you've got any questions as I go along the way, use the IM window. Nick's monitoring the IM window for questions, and we'll get to them at the end. So yeah, data is normally entered just once by the school admin staff, not IT, into the school management system. It flows through each of the systems, so it might be every half an hour or an hour the system can query the school management system, or every half a day, for example, pull the changes into the platform and then make the workflow. We'll kick off from there and go and create that stuff automatically. We're going to get into some demos now, so I've talked enough, so I do want to get into some demos, and so I'm just going to share my desktop, and I'll give everyone a minute to catch up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into this is what the modern automation platform looks like. So it's all web driven for both administrator and end user, but the end users typically will not see this view. I'll go into that in a little bit. But if I jump into home, I can see my users' profiles and passwords, distribution groups, etc. So I want to have a look for some users. And in the background, we've got just a flat file that we're going to use for this demonstration. So this could be, we're just using this rather than a school management system, but you can see I've got a flat file which has got preferred name values, given name values, surname, student ID, graduation year, school, sports house, date of birth, what's their status, whether they're an active or alumni student, and also what campus they reside on. So I've got that flat file data there, and Nick's just going to kick off an import in the system. So we're basically going to suck that flat file into the solution, but in a normal school sense, this would be automated and looking at a SQL database view of your either TAS or Synergetic or other school management system. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do an advanced search. I'm just going to add in employee type is student, and I'm going to click search. And I can see that has created the 5 accounts that you can see from the flat file. And that is Bill Bob, Doris Harrison, Kel Perkins, Leo Clark, and Ramon Dixon. I can see their account names, etc., etc. I don't have these values filled in at the moment, but you can see this is the kind of provisioning data. So these accounts have now been provisioned in the system, and they've got passwords, etc. set. They've also got accounts and all that relevant data that's come from the flat file. So the next one is, so the building blocks. So just before I get into some more demos. So the building blocks is, Microsoft Identity Manager 2016. So this could either run on-premise or in a data center. Typically, we want to be close to the student management system. So we want to be as close to TAS or Synergetic as the case may be, the two major ones that we see out there in schools. It's really built for Office 365 and Azure Active Directory. So if anyone's using Office 365 today, then this is a natural fit. What we're looking for is a data source or a single source of truth. So we need, typically that's the school management system. So we pull that data and treat it as the primary key or the primary source of our data. And we also need some connectors to go off and connect to Active Directory, Office 365, Exchange, all that other stuff. So we use management agents or connectors to go off and do that. We also need to define the triggers or events. So what do we want to happen when we see this data? So typically we've templated that for a lot of schools because a lot of the school data is very similar. But we need to basically trigger off some data or trigger off an event. And then what do we want that action to be? So what do we want? We've got this data now. What do we want to do with it? So these are all the building blocks of our modern automation platform. So if you're wondering what it's built on, it's built on Microsoft Identity Manager. So it's still, you can go off and do it today and download it. We have just put a lot of customization and R&D into to what we've got today. So the next demo I'm going to show is around enterprise voice. So this is using Skype for Business as a phone system. So I'm just going to share my screen again. Okay, I'm just making sure everyone can see my screen. I'm going to jump back to my users pane, and I'm actually going to search for myself. So this is just a quick demo. I can see Stuart. I can click on my account, and I've got these tabs across the top. So I've got Skype for Business, Office 365, Work Info, Contact Info, Provisioning Data. So I'm going to click, so I can see it's pulled in all my Active Directory credentials here. It's got my domain, email alias, all that kind of fun stuff. I'm just going to click on the Skype for Business tab. And as you can see, I've pulled in this data from Skype for Business. So we're actually going out to the Skype for Business or link server, and we're pulling all this data from Skype into the platform. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to have to set my status to busy because it won't IM me. What I want to do is forward to voicemail. So I'm changing, actually I'll say forward to mobile. And what this system is going to do is it's already pulled my mobile number in from Active Directory, and it's also pulled in all my normal extension, my number, or my SIP address, where I'm homed. It also pulls in your delegates, your team, all this other fun stuff. It can pull that directly from Skype for Business. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fire this off. Okay, so let's go try forward to voicemail. So it's submitted now. If I go back to my Skype client, the system will actually instant message me to tell me that forwarding has taken place. So I can see down the right-hand side, it's actually IM'd me and said, you have updated call forwarding for Stuart Moore to forward to voicemail. So you can imagine if you were actually doing this on behalf of someone else, you wouldn't do this for yourself, but you can imagine that this would actually alert them to say, hey, we forward your phone because we know you're going out or you're going on leave or you're going to be away. So this is something that an administrator or a reception team or someone can do on behalf of other people. So you can see on my Skype client on the right-hand side that calls are being forwarded to voicemail. So that's the system doing that automatically. I don't actually have to go into Skype for Business and do that at all. So I'm just going to turn that off. So yeah, another nifty thing that we've built in lately, but you can see how that in a large school environment where you've got a lot of people coming and going, people on leave, holidays, whatever the case may be, it might be quite popular. So the next demo we're actually going to show, I won't be going back to the slide deck, is a parent one-time password reset. So we had a school that came to us and said, we want to give parents access to school systems, where it's Parent Lounge or resources or anything like that, but we don't want to manage their passwords, and we don't have anything to do with the way the parents utilize our systems. It was just overhead that we're not prepared to do. So we built this thing called a parent one-time password reset portal. And so what you would do is when the student is provisioned or enrolled at the start of the year, the parent is given a Active Directory username, not a password, an Active Directory username and an email address. So it might be their personal email address, work email address, whatever the case may be. So those two attributes is what we need, and then they simply go to a portal similar to this. They put in their let's test parent. They put in their username they've got. They click next. I have to log in again. Test parent 01. The system will go off and validate that is actually an account that I know about. And what it'll do is it'll then send off the email to the appropriate person. And you can see I've just got my emails just come in now. It's giving me the security code. So that's to my email that's associated with that account. I then go back to my password portal. I put in that code 979909. The system will then validate that, and I can set a new password. So I actually don't need to, I can actually unlock the account as well, but I don't actually have to bother anyone at the school. I can set a password, and then it's up to me to validate and manage that solution now. So I never have to contact the school IT team or anyone else to get that done for me. So is that all making sense, Nick? Have we got any questions? Any more questions coming in? No? Okay, everyone must be really blown away. So must be writing their purchase orders right now. So the next one I'm going to show is something that's just sort of come out from Microsoft. Is in I know OneNote's been out for a long time, but the ability to create OneNote class notebooks and staff notebooks. So this is something we've built as part of our platform to be able to automatically provision OneNote classroom notebook creation for students en masse or staff en masse with the appropriate permissions and the appropriate policies and configurations for those OneNote groups as well. So rather than doing that by manually or some kind of PowerShell and trying to figure out all the values yourself, we've built this system to take a lot of that pain away from that as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for a security group. So I've jumped into security groups here. And what I've got is a Year 8 English OneNote class notebook. So you could see how you could divide this into, it might be Year 8A English, Year 8B English, Year 8C English, whatever the case may be. And this is something that we would automatically pull from the school management system. So we don't actually have to create these manually. This would all be derived from that school management system. So you can see I've jumped into the security group. I can look over here and I've got members down the bottom. Where is it? OneNote. I can see these are the members that it's pulled into that I know as students. So you can see my Billy Bob, Doris Harrison, Kel Perkins, Leo Clark, etc. They are all a member of the Year 8 English OneNote class notebook security group. And I'm just going to click provision OneNote. So I'm just going to untick it actually because it'll work on either value. So I'm just going to submit that. And off it'll go in the background, and it will actually go off and create OneNote for all of those users, and also create I'm the teacher, or I'm the owner of that security group. So I'm the owner of I'm the Year 8 English teacher. I'm just going to jump into. So we've decided to put our OneNote notebooks in a central location. So I've put them into this class notebooks field. So as you can see, it's just created that Year 8 OneNote class notebook there. And if I jump into my email, it's actually should be saying yes. So you can see that email there. A new class OneNote has been created. The details name is Year 8 English OneNote class notebook. And these are the members and the students. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the student number at domain. And I've also pulled through the OneNote location where it's actually written the OneNote notebook too. So I can just click that and it will take me straight into the thing, but I'm just going to go back here. So I'm going to jump into OneNote Online. So as you can see, we have created the OneNote class notebook with all the relevant data. So this is using the API in Office 365 and OneNote to create these. And I can see down the left-hand side, I've got Bill Bob, Doris, Kel Perkins, Leo Clark, and Ramon Dixon. So I've also got my teacher-only section, my collaboration spaces, etc. So yeah, this is all done programmatically with no requirement to manually go through and do this. Or require a teacher to go and do this and manage their staff or their classroom lists as well. So yeah, personally, I think that's really cool, but I'm happy to take feedback on that. So yeah, the next demo I'm going to show is the ability to take a timetable data entry from school management system and push that into Exchange. So if I have a look here, I'm just going to jump into my calendar when this comes up. And I can see I've got two calendars selected, which is Student Test 01 and Teacher Test 10. So this is both student for Year 8 English. I've got Student Test 01 and I've got Teacher Test 10, and Teacher Test is the Year 8 English teacher. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump back into my security groups, and I've got a Year 8 English class group, and members are part of the Year 8 English Class A. So I'm going to click on this, and this could be they could be the same security group. We've just got two different security groups, but it might be in some cases it might be the same one. So I'm just going to click on calendar, and I'm going to click on provision lesson. So I'm just going to turn that off. And you can see I've got my lesson times are 2 p.m., 9 a.m. and 1 p.m. on different days. So I've got three English lessons for the week. And I'm just going to click and submit that. And in the background, the system will run the workflow to then go and provision the calendar entries in Exchange. So we use Office 365, so this isn't some magic with on-premise Exchange. This is using the APIs in Office 365 to create the calendar entries. So you can see they're populating on my calendars on the right hand on for student test and teacher test. So that will come into the user's mailbox, whether they're using Outlook, mobile devices, whatever the case may be. So automatically provisioning their timetable from a school management system. So that is all the demos I have today. So I'm just going to jump back to my presentation. So in terms of what we're offering today, is so we either do this as a subscription service, so we would deploy this on premise for a school, or we can host it in something like an Azure data center or something else, but typically it has to be close to the school management system. So whether that's TAS, Synergetic, SAS, any of the other major ones. We typically offer 3 connectors, so whether it's to do timetable synchronization, parent one-time password, and Active Directory. We also take care of the proactive and reactive management of that solution. So we patch it, keep it secure, fix any faults, fix any issues that crop up. And so we try and keep that system as healthy as possible. So the idea being is that you guys just manage keeping it up, but we manage everything else in terms of how the system operates and works and all that kind of stuff. So it takes the hassle out of actually operating this in a sense for the school. So that can become as a fixed price per month as a service. So we'll, if you make 50 service tickets about that each month, then that's the way it works. or we do have some schools that don't buy things as a service, or it's hard to work out expenditure from that point of view. So we do it as a fixed price. So at the moment, it's pretty much a POA. We'll have a chat with someone offline and talk about what they actually want to achieve, what connectors they need, and then sort of customize a proposal based on that, either in a service or a fixed price for a project. So yeah, the offer for everyone who's jumped along today, who come along, we're not going to give you a free set of steak knives, but we're happy to have a 30-minute consult with one of our automation consultants. So that's typically Nick or myself or someone else here that can have a chat to you about what you actually want to achieve with automation, and explore what is actually possible and what we've seen in other schools. And I'm more than happy if you've got some weird and wacky, wonderful ideas around what you want to achieve through automation. We can have a look at that as well. The idea out of this is to try and identify, look, how much time you're actually spending on routine, common tasks that we can actually automate using the map or the automation platform. So without further ado, that's it. That's the end of the webinar. So I know it was hopefully enlightening in terms of the demos. But yeah, we will be here for another 5-10 minutes. If you've got any questions, feel free to pop them in the IM window, or we can feel free to drop me an email or jump on the website there. I've got my Twitter there as well, so I kind of ramble about Microsoft stuff and Formula One and Lego. So if you want to jump on and follow me, then yeah. But yeah, if anyone's got any questions around what we can do, feel free to yell out now in the IM window.